don't go get your MBA. The most valuable experience that you can actually do is go learn the revenue cycle on a sales team. Like, if you really want to understand startups, go learn the revenue cycle in a sales team, because that is the most valuable thing that you will be able to understand for your startup, because everything starts and ends with the revenue cycle. From getting customers to closing the deal and then turning it over. I mean, like, that is so fundamentally, like, people on the provider side have no clue how much work goes into that.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Leadership Podcast. My name is Tracy. You can follow me on Twitter at LadyLeet or on LinkedIn at Tracy S. Lee. And I am so excited to welcome one of my friends onto the show, Bradley Dick. Welcome, Bradley, to the show.
Thank you for having me, Tracy.
Yes, you have been doing so much. Bradley and I know each other from the Atlanta healthcare and tech and startup scene, and you are everywhere. For those of us who don't know you, did you want to go ahead and do a quick introduction?
Sure. My name is Bradley Dick. I am currently co-founder and CEO for a company, ZeroDivide.ai. We build AI products for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Prior to that, I was a CIO for Resurgence Orthopedics and 13 years. So I was in healthcare for about 20 years, some of that in health tech. And kind of brought me to my journey here. So,
yeah, that's amazing. It's always great to see when people make the leap. I always get a little bit nervous because, you really have to time it, right? And then, should you not? How do you do it? It's always a challenge to figure out what to do. But what inspired you to make the leap from, a stable CIO job to the often uncertainty of entrepreneurship? Like, how did you know it was the right time?
whew. Well, so I think there were a few things. There's the mantra of, like, well, the tenure of a CIO is usually what, like, I think the average span of a CIO's career is usually like about 3 years. So I'd been there for 13 years. So I'd seen a lot of things, and it was one of those things where it was like, I came into being a CIO. you know, I've had the serendipitous opportunity, I guess, to walk into industries as they're being, I don't know if I want to say disrupted, or there's kind of an explosion of technology. So I started my journey into healthcare as a CIO a couple years before meaningful use happened. So, there's meaningful use, and then there's just so many other, iterations of technology that kind of got infused. And it was just such an interesting time to be in healthcare, especially on the tech side, because, the whole role of a CIO became very different, from when I got there to, when I was finally exiting and leaving being a CIO. So, I mean, the CIO kind of, I would say, like, the CIO role came into their own while I was going through the CIO, because, like, it went from being like the CIO was kind of the head IT person to being so much more from technology, compliance, security. It became like something that you kind of were I remember our initial conversations were, how do you get into the seat at the table to, it's being so much more than just that. That was like the first conversations that we were having to by the time I was leaving, it was kind of, so many more strategic aspects of it. Being at the table wasn't even, discussed anymore, because had to be at the table because there were so many pieces after meaningful use happened, and, all the other, like, regulatory and security concerns that started happening by the time that I left in 2019. So, well, to answer your question,
Yeah.
there was just frustration with the technology. The health tech sector was just not where I thought it should be, and I would come home every day and just be very frustrated, and it just I just felt like it could be better, and it was just that I was talking to a number of startups. That's one of the nice things when you're a CIO. There's no shortage of startups that will be more than obliging to meet with you. I think I would meet with so many different startups. I was working with a good friend, Arun Mohan from Radix Health, and we were working together at Resurgence on their product. Working with Pranay at Notable, and a number of startups, and it sort of got to a point where I was enjoying more being on the innovation side than on the implementation side. And that's what I like to say is that I made the shift from implementing to innovating. And that's when I knew where I wanted to be, as I wanted to be on the innovating side. And that's when I made the change.
I love that. That is so amazing. And it definitely takes people like you who are, who see a need or a gap in the market and say, hey, you know what? I want to make a difference in the world. So I totally feel that because I am very much the same way. So during that transition, and it's funny because you transitioned kind of, and then went into COVID. So surprise, surprise, dealing with 10 million other things. But what has been the most surprising challenge you've encountered during this shift?
Um, so I mean, there's a couple things. One of the things, and somebody told me like going into this, they're like, you know, there are people that will, and I brought this up before. So anybody making the shift, one of the most surprising things that you don't need to not be surprised is there's a lot of people that are friends with CIO Bradley that are not going to necessarily be friends with Bradley, who's not the CIO. So that is something that will go without saying. And he also warned me. He's like, some people are not going to be the ones that you're going to expect. So the people that you could call on to be in your corner, the people that you could rely on, are not necessarily going to be the ones that are going to be there when you're no longer in that CIO role. So
Oh, that's so
yeah,
interesting. So
no,
you really find out who your true friends are.
well, and I don't even want to say true friends as much as, 'cause I mean, it's business. I get
Mm-hmm.
it. But at the same time, there are people that are with you because of who you are and what you can get them. And then there are people that are
Mm-hmm.
with you because of, like, and I guess it's friends. But I mean, there's got to be a better word because I think I don't really consider it friends as much as
Colleagues,
colleagues or, I
business,
don't know, just people you can trust.
acquaintances.
I
Yeah.
don't know what the word is. Somebody will probably have a better determination of it because I don't, it is what it is. But you
Mm-hmm.
know, because I mean, at the same deal, they have a role in business too. I mean, like, they have a job, and that's their job. So I get that, but I think that was one of the challenging things, and I think the other challenging thing is that you know kind of refiguring out how you fit into the role, and that is the most challenging thing that you have to face is when you go from being a provider to the supplier. I think I did Ed Mark's podcast right after I made that shift, and he put it. I think he put it most. He articulated it most eloquently is when he said that because he made that shift as well. When you go from being a provider to supplier, you really have to kind of like figure out how you do that role because you still have that provider brain, and when you go into the supplier side and you're like, oh hey, I know everything, and when you're in that company that's on the supplier side, you can't just be that provider person. You now have to take on the role of the supplier side. So you have to really understand, what products are you offering, coming at it from the product side, coming at it from the startup side. You can't just be like, oh, hey, I was CIO, I am this, I was that, this is how we should do it. So you really kind of have to be able to, yes, you were in that role, you add a lot of value by bringing that previous experience, but you can't just sit there and be like, hey, I know everything, I know this, I'm bringing this to the table. You kind of say, hey, I need to kind of check that, put that in the back pocket, say, yes, I want to have those type of, I have that value and I can bring that to the table. But at the same time, I need to kind of shut my mouth and listen because I need to also learn all of, what does customer success do? Like in the background. That's not, because I mean, customer success does whatever the CIO tells them to do from my side. But, in the reality, what does customer success really do? Like what does sales really do? Like what I tell people that I mentor now is I was like, don't go get your MBA. The most valuable experience that you can actually do is go learn the revenue cycle on a sales team. Like if you really want to understand startups, go learn the revenue cycle in a sales team because that is the most valuable thing that you will be able to understand for your startup because everything starts and ends with the revenue cycle I mean from getting customers to closing the deal and then turning it over. I mean, like that is so fundamentally like people on the provider side have no clue how much work goes into that, and like I mean, I had no clue, like just to the amount of effort that goes into getting in front of that CIO, like the amount of work that that somebody has spent to get in front of me to have that dinner. Like, I mean, I was blown away when I kind of when kind of the curtain got pulled back, and I'm like, oh my god, like that was 100 hours just for that one dinner that we like completely took for granted, and we're almost going to blow off. It's just I wish that CIOs knew more about what goes on in order to get in front of them, because I think that would kind of really kind of I don't know. I've been a very
Maybe there'd be more empathy
yeah. I mean, I really,
on
I've
that
been,
side.
I was shocked and almost kind of uh, appalled by my behavior, and I've been a completely different person since I've kind of learned that.
I love that. I love that. So you said a little bit about Zero Divide and what you guys are doing, but maybe can you elaborate a little bit more about what you all are building?
Yeah. So, there's a significant gap for in the disability space. So, like I said, I mentioned I had started in health tech, and especially during the pandemic, there was a significant need for technology during health tech. But like one of the things that I say is, everything's a pendulum, and one of the problems that happened is during health tech, or during the pandemic, health tech I think got really overinvested. And when I went to HIMSS and so we raised when at one of the startups we raised $25 million, and we had this huge competitive advantage. I basically got pulled in to run a development team and scale out a startup, and we raised 25 million because we had a telehealth integrated into an EHR before the pandemic. So I mean, it was pretty much a golden ticket. And but the problem was, by the time that we raised the money and started building everything out, we went to HIMSS the following year. There's like 100 companies that had also raised way more money and all that other stuff. And I just saw an oversaturated market that was going to be so commoditized. And that's when I made the escape to then go to the developmental disability space and started working there. Because, I have a son who with autism, and it's something that I always wanted to work in, because it was an industry that had not really garnered the attention that I felt that it had needed. And it has also been a community that has given me and my family so much that I really wanted to give back to. Like from the day that I saw it, it's something that I always wanted to support. So when I finally got the opportunity to do something on my own, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and it was work in the industry that I really saw was in need of support. And when I first started working in the developmental disability industry, it was like walking into healthcare in 2006 when I started. And I mean, it was so the last company before I founded my own was, I mean, they're paper timesheets and paper progress notes. I mean, it was so analogous to walking into healthcare 20 years ago that it was scary. I literally had like deja vu. And there's so much opportunity there. And literally the product that we're working on now is all about creating tools using AI to amplify and augment people with disabilities so that they can um, have opportunities to go on to vocational and educational opportunities that they wouldn't have otherwise. Our first product really focuses on the ability to help those like with that are neurodivergent, so like on the spectrum, ADHD, even dyslexic, get what's in their head onto paper. And it does that by using AI to kind of help them structure what's in their head through a conversation and then put it down onto paper. And by doing so, it kind of takes the challenge of the structuring and the writing out of the equation, and enables them to go on to these vocational educational opportunities that they wouldn't have otherwise. Because we're the call to action that we really need to have is, we're currently facing a in the next 20 years we're going to be facing a, a cohort of caretakers that is or that are going to be themselves starting to move into the age group that will be classifying themselves as disabled. So we have a group of caretakers that are taking care of, people that would be identified as disabled, and they themselves are going to be becoming disabled. So the number of people that will be identified as disabled in the next 20 years is going to double, because we currently have a growth of 1 in 6 people are being born with a developmental or intellectual disability. So in the next 20 years, if we don't do something and we don't start creating opportunities with education and vocational opportunities to enable people with disabilities to have jobs or education and real jobs, like careers where they can support themselves, we are going to be facing a uh, uh, housing insecurity, food insecurity. I mean, this is going to probably be one of our number one problems in our country in the next 20 years. Like it's not going to be Medicare, it's not going to be insurance. It's going to be the number of people that we're going to have to be supporting with disabilities, and we want to get ahead of that. And we see AI and enablement as being one of the key ways that we can avoid that, because there's so many people that just with some supports can get a job or get a career or get that educational opportunity. They just need that little bit of support that they might not be able to afford otherwise, or they might not be able to do without some little confidence. And it's just the right confidence, it's the right supports at the right time can make all the difference. And that's what I saw.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think I'm hosting a panel on inequities in kind of like the healthcare space, right? And I'm hosting the women's panel, and uh, I was just on the phone with everybody, and to hear some of the women who are doing startups or doing on the research side, how that in healthcare conversations that should, in my opinion, be so basic and so like we shouldn't even have to be having a conversation about why we aren't having the conversation, right?
Exactly.
But it sounds like very very similar for the industry for helping people with disabilities and things like that. So I know you see great things in the next 20 years, and you see you're at the forefront of this, and you're basically going to paint the next 13. I mean, you were in healthcare CIO for 13 years, right? So you're basically doing the same thing in this space. How do you envision technology evolving in healthcare over the next few years, just in terms of accessibility, inclusivity? What are some of the trends you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the real trends are going to be, uh, I mean, AI is really kind of what I see AI as being is not, just these assistants. And what I see AI is I see AI as being the next iteration of the human computer interaction. I see that as that's really what it is. We've kind of been in this model where we've been interacting with computers. We started with desktops, and then everybody went to laptops, and then now everything is kind of mobile first. And I really see kind of everything being AI first, and that's kind of how I see the next iteration of this. I see things are going to start really going to be that's going to be our going to be our interface is going to be through AI.
Yeah,
AI
yeah,
is going to be kind of the next mode that we kind of communicate with, because there's a lot of opportunities that we can use to kind of use that kind of as like the middleware or the interoperability layer for communication. Because I mean, it's just amazing. So like one of the things that our product has the ability to do is it can break down barriers from communication from languages. So like you can speak to it in Spanish, and it'll recognize that you're speaking in Spanish, and it'll automatically change the language that you're speaking into Spanish. So I mean, from that alone, like we're now breaking down barriers of accessibility from a language barrier perspective. So I mean, that's I mean, just think about that a decade ago. If you thought that like a computer would just be able to automatically detect your language and change, that's some like Star Trek type stuff. So I mean,
Yeah.
we're getting close to those type of things where I think the human computer interaction layer is where we're going to be changing the most um, from a healthcare perspective. And I think there's that. And then my next thing that I'm most bullish on, and I know it's kind of the closest thing from science fiction, but I swear I saw this at Health 2.0 when I was there, is simulations and the ability to run like detailed healthcare simulations. I think is going to be the biggest game changer for healthcare. And if I could go back and do anything again, I would like I would go back and learn and figure out how to do that because I saw them like using 3D don't quite, I think it was 3D CTs on a patient, and they were able to effectively like virtually run a stent, multiple stents to see what stent they put in would actually have the best habilitative care for this patient, so they would actually know like what would increase the blood flow the best. And
That's
this was in
amazing.
2019 at Health 2.0. So I mean like
Yeah.
this was before all the models that we have now. So I mean like, when you think about that, when you can start simulating outside of the human body, um, at that level. And I mean, I guess that's more of a simplistic, vision to the point where we can, maybe we can, do drug trials. I mean, because like I said, like we were talking about earlier, like, when you're doing, especially on cancer treatments or those type of things, like, you know, some person in that drug treat trial is getting, a placebo, you know, and that is unfortunate because that person is not getting any drugs and they have, might have terminal cancer. And, I would love to get to the day where we can get away from those type of trials. And I know that maybe that probably won't be my lifetime, but, I think that the technology can get to the point where we can simulate the biochemistry and like the outcomes. And I don't know. Again, this is very,
It does seem
yeah,
like, I mean, that does seem like it's on the horizon because I've definitely heard conversations around that, right? Because you think about different populations, right? I mean, we're always talking about doing clinical trials on more diverse
exactly.
populations, right? Which is why Atlanta is such a great place to do clinical trials. But even, I was on a phone call and they were talking about doing clinical trials on women with menopause and, how many people can you get? And, women are typically more busy taking care of the family and, have a bunch of other things going on. So the populations that I think some of these clinical trials are trying to get, there's definitely a struggle there. But I don't know. I think it's coming sooner than later.
Oh,
I mean, I think we're going to be
100%.
able to see that in the next, 3 to 5 years or so, because I think it's starting to happen, if you will, kind of, behind the curtains. So no, it's really exciting. I
Listen,
really love hanging out in the healthcare and life sciences space because you just get to be at the forefront of everything happening.
like,
And you being in healthcare and then in tech with AI, and I always say with AI, you have to be at the forefront. You have to be reading and updating because literally something you thought was the best approach 2 weeks ago could change overnight.
oh, wow.
But how do you keep up? So you're keeping up with the healthcare space,
Mhm.
right? The
Yeah.
industry, and then you're keeping up with the rapid pace of just tech advancements, right? So how do you best stay informed and make decisions with all these new technologies? And when do you know when to adopt them?
Ugh, I mean, like it's really hard to. I mean, like, it's hard. I mean, a lot of it is just you have to dog food it. I mean, and for people that don't, is that still an expression that's used, or am I just dating myself? I mean,
I don't know. I think it's still used.
okay,
I've heard it before.
okay. I mean, like so. Microsoft used to use it. Basically, it means to just you kind of you're using the technology that you're building, and kind of you just continue. Basically you have to kind of use the technology as it's kind of being developed in your own way, so that you can kind of stay up to speed on it. So like you continually so the only way that you're going to know whether or not it's good is if you use it. And not saying that we put it all in our products, but I'm definitely trying out all the new stuff in on myself. and so I'll know whether or not it's good. I'll be honest, my CTO is a sponge and is uh, one of the most brilliant people I've ever had the opportunity of working with. It's I have historically been the CTO, and it's been a very interesting role for me to have to not be the technical person because I'm usually
Yes. And for you to trust the CTO, being a CTO, that's huge.
oh yeah, no,
Because usually it's hardest to hire for the role you know best.
oh yeah, but I mean, like, so what I like to say is, I've never been Afflecked in a role before, but my boy is wicked smart. For
I love that.
like the Goodwill Hunting reference, I totally did an awful Boston accent, so I apologize to anybody from Boston that is listening to this. But I mean, it really just you just have to read a lot, and when I say read,
Hmm.
I listen to a lot of audiobooks, podcasts, those type of things. I mean, you have to stay up on the technology and just use it. I mean, like you can't be a passive person with this type of stuff. You have to
Yes,
you
yes.
have to stay in with the community. I mean, you have to go to events and also stay around people younger than you. Like
Yeah.
I love being. I really so I spend a lot of time at ATV, Atlanta Tech Village, and I mean I love listening to all the amazing startups that other people are doing, and they might not have anything to do with me, but I just love hearing their ideas and their energy and all these. And I don't want to say, and I don't mean it, in any type of derogatory or disparaging, but all these kids that are coming out of tech and having all these amazing ideas, just the stuff that you never think about, and it's invigorating to just be around the community. So um,
Yes,
I
yes.
think that
Sounds
also,
like I need
yeah,
to hang out at ATV more.
you should hang out at ATV more.
But
Plug for ATV. No, I'm
yes,
just kidding.
yes. But then I'd have to drive to ATV and that sounds awful. But I love that energy though. You need
Yeah,
to add some energy to your life. I mean, it really makes a huge difference.
it really does.
What did they say? Like you are a summation of is it the four people that you hang out with the most? I can't remember the
I mean,
exact number, but
that sounds like, what I say is that,
yeah.
the closest people that you have in your life are you can count on one hand. I mean, that's what I've always said. Like the number of people the real people in your life, you can count on one hand.
That is very true. Given all your healthcare experience, what are some of the common pitfalls that new companies in the health tech space should be cautious of? And I'm pretty sure you have a laundry list.
All right. So number one, don't start at a whiteboard and write $100 per provider per month and work backwards. I literally felt like so many startups like started with that, and maybe it's getting better now because I just read an article that said, "Is SaaS dead?" So I don't know if that's true or not, but I think that was probably clickbait. But I felt like so often it would be like startups, especially in health tech, would be like $100 per provider per month, and then we're going to figure out what we're going to sell. So I mean, like there's no way that you can get into health tech without working with an organization. You can't be outside of health tech building a solution, and you can't be building a solution that's looking for a problem. You have to find a problem and then try to build a solution for it. Because there's so many companies that really I've seen doing that. Like you can be the smartest person in the room, but if you don't have a healthcare background, and you can't healthcare background does not mean you went to med school. That's another thing. I used to get a lot of flack for this, but the only person that the doctors listen to less than their CIO is a non-practicing physician. So it's so true. It's so true. Like, and you might not think so, but like, wait till you walk out of the room and they will shred you. Like they shred you, and like, trust me, like the doctors do not want to hear from a doctor that's never touched a patient because like literally it's like the worst thing because it's like they don't understand why they'd be like, why would you go to med school, spend all that time going to see and then not treat patients? Like for most physicians, that's like sacrilege. So don't just go hire a guy that's a doctor because he has an MD if he's never touched a patient. And if he is a doctor, make sure that he's continuing to see patients. So even if he's not in your office as much, it would be better for him to spend one day a week like volunteering at a clinic touching patients than it would be for him to spend 4 days a week for him to spend all of his time with you guys. So like just free advice. if you have enough money to hire a physician, make sure he's practicing if you want him in your space, because a non-practicing physician, unless you're in research or something like that, is just not going to be very valuable for your organization. You want to have somebody that's working with patients if your product has anything to do with patients, because the physicians want somebody that is practicing. Um,
I love that advice. I
yeah,
love
because I mean,
that's huge advice
yeah,
because I think most people don't realize that.
well, because I mean, like you'll see that even now, like even some CIOs that or CMIOs. Most CMIOs will take they'll take rounds at least once.
Hmm. Hmm.
They'll see patients because they'll want to keep that in place. And I mean, it's what I love a lot of CIOs, they'll even have like a connect to purpose day where they'll even keep some of their IT staff, and they'll have their IT staff serve, like they might require their IT staff one day a year to do some other aspect in the hospital. So I mean, like,
Hmm. Hmm.
it's good to kind of keep that purpose, like, that you can kind of know what's going on in the organization.
You can
Yes,
connect
exactly.
better with the industry that you're serving. I love that.
Exactly.
Well, I wanted to take a quick shout out and say thank you to our sponsor, This Dot Labs. This Dot Labs, we are trusted experts in modern web development and consulting. So we get to do a lot of stuff in the healthcare and life sciences space, which is pretty exciting because, again, there is so much to do there, and it's so amazing to be able to serve with a passion. But there are so many things happening, and in today's fast-paced tech world, scaling dev teams, as you know very well, Bradley, and bringing innovative ideas to life can be so challenging. So that's where this dot comes in. We specialize in amplifying whether you have technical capabilities already or whether it's expanding your team of professionals or streamlining projects as well. So we really take a more personalized and collaborative approach to things. We really like to take the time to understand unique business needs and really craft more tailored solutions. Um, and if you want to check out this dot, you can check us out at this.co. That's THISDOT.co. And I just want to get a big shout out to my team and a thank you to them allowing me to do all these fun things like this podcast, and continuing to sponsor this episode and have a commitment, right? Our team really has a commitment to be able to advance tech and the community. So thank you again, Bradley. This was such an informative conversation. I took so many little tidbits on your wealth of experience. You have been at a health tech startup, raised tons of money as an executive there. You've been on the CIO side in healthcare forever. And then now you are a CEO of your own startup and, foraying into, into AI and just, really providing a lot of value to populations that need it. So thank you for all the work you do. If anybody wants to find out more about you, where can we find you?
Well, I mean, you can go to ZeroDivide.ai. I'm very
Mhm.
active on LinkedIn, so that's
Okay.
LinkedIn /what IN /Bradley Dick, or I don't. I'm also ZeroDivide AI on LinkedIn, but yeah, you can
Amazing.
find me on the socials. Again, it's we're a startup, so I'm the chief everything officer. Uh, uh,
I like that. I've never heard chief everything officer, but that is a really good way to put it.
yeah.
So, well, again, thank you again, Bradley, so much for being on the show. For those of you listening, definitely check out all the stuff that Bradley is doing, and we will see you again for another episode. Have a really good day.
Thank you.